Listen, it really seemed tonight like the Guardians didn't actually want to win this game. They tried to give it away multiple times. There is so much to get into with all the things that went wrong. But at the end of the day, they won. They pulled out a win in a game that they absolutely should have won and continue the hot streak of play. We're going to get into today's game, talk a little bit about Colorado in general on today's episode of Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Sorry about that. MLB had an autoplay video. I realized that I had closed out the game, but let's get into it. My name is Jeff Ellis. I'm the host of Locked On Guardians. Before I was the host of Locked On Guardians for all 700 plus episodes, I wrote for Scout 24/7 under their Scouting Baseball website, where I wrote about the draft and MLB prospects. Before that, I wrote for Indians Baseball and Indians Prospect Insider, the original one. I wrote for Cleveland Fan, waiting for next year. There is a Cleveland sports blog that you have read. I probably wrote for it for some period of time. I also want to thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, wherever it is that you get podcasts. So let's start off with some minor moves. We were talking about, yesterday, the super long podcast. People seem to enjoy the focus on the minors, but we talked about the fact that, Ray Delgado has been playing super well. And this is a guy who I think has my co-host wants to hop in. He's here. You want to say hello? That Reynel Delgado had the highest bonus, was it the 6th round ever? The highest, they thought highly enough of this guy to give him the highest bonus they've ever given in that round. And again, I really liked him. So it's great to see him playing well, and they moved him up with Milan Tolentino getting don't eat the microphone, cat. Things you say to cats and babies. With Milan Tolentino getting bumped up to Lake County. We talked about that on yesterday's show. They needed to move up Ray. Okay, the Guardians Insider just called him Ray, so we're going to go with that. So he gets the move up to Double-A. And let's see, Seth Codhell, the catcher, went from Akron to Columbus. Now I'm trying to remember, he was the college catcher for someone who just got promoted. That's right. So kind of stinks. He was an undrafted free agent signing, but he was, why it kind of stinks he's getting moved up now is he was Gavin Williams' college catcher. So he's getting the bump up to Columbus, and then Jake Miller is being put on the injured list. Jake Miller was their last pick, 20th rounder from a year ago, but they gave him more money than that. So, yes, while he was the last pick of the 2020 draft, he got one of the biggest bonuses, and definitely their biggest day 3 bonus, I should say, for the 2021 draft. But so that's the minor moves that occurred. Again, it's just kind of ridiculous. There's so much going on. I didn't talk about, but for instance, Kyle Bodie, Driveline Baseball, does a whole thing about kind of looks at advanced pitching or advanced stats through pitching, and the Guardians are lapping the field. The gap between them and was it the Cubs in 2 was huge. It was kind of ridiculous how big the gap is. They just keep performing and developing these pitching at such a crazy level that it's a little bit unbelievable just how well they're playing. Just how well they're developing. But yeah, I am definitely... Sorry. Just getting distracted by all these things popping up on my screen as I try to go to the right the places I'm trying to go to. But yeah, the pitching development is a lot of fun. I know this is all hitters getting moved up, but yeah. Now, let's get into the game today. So it was kind of annoying from my perspective on this game. Not even getting into my personal annoyances in the game, but just, okay, I grew up as a kid without cable. I had, the basic 12 to 14 or 2 to 14 or whatever it was. The basic cable. That's what we had in my house. But it meant that, like I think it was like WOIO would occasionally get Cavs games. WUAB would get Cavs games and Cleveland baseball games. So I grew up with UAB being my primary way to watch the Guardians. That meant that Jim Hegan and Jack Corrigan were the announcers of my youth. Now, Jack Corrigan is the radio guy in Colorado. I've talked about this many times on the show, that, he is kind of like just a personal favorite. So on my phone, I could do a badly synced video, radio, and video, but they wouldn't do that on. It's interesting because like I remember when I moved from New York to Ohio, I could do on only the PlayStation was where I could do like radio over the video. Now I can't do it on the PlayStation. I can only do it on my phone. So I ended up having the visual over here, and then I had over on my computer here Jack Corrigan doing the announcing because they said they hadn't played since 2017, so it's been 5 years since I don't think I had the MLB package then because oh my God, Cat, I'm going to throw. This is going to be the last one with my co-host. He's being a massive problem, but I lived in Ohio then, so I wouldn't have had the ability to do this. So I just decided this is the guy I grew up with. It's going to be something. So for these games with Colorado, I'm not going to stream them because it's I'm not going to do any of the free flow games. I know those are popular, and today would have been an excellent game for me to sit back and throw on and do the kind of the live stream as it's occurring. But it's just my own personal thing. I want to enjoy, Jack Corrigan. So these games, I'm going to just kind of watch on my own and discuss later. I'm going to do the incredibly awkward setup because it's the most effective thing I could do in terms of I don't want to watch it on my phone and I have to make it work. But, I was talking to my wife about this earlier, and she's got a great point. Like, why are sports making it hard to get a new generation of fan? Like, why are sports making it so exclusive? There was Sports Channel growing up, and I didn't have it, but I could still see Guardians games. I could still see Cavs games. I still had an alternative on the local cable. And, there's a lot of reasons why football is the most popular sport in America, but one of it is, like, you can always watch your team. You don't have to, like, when it comes to things like Ohio State, like, most of those games are going to be local. When it comes to the Browns, most of those games won't be blacked out. Football, part of the reason I think it's so successful in getting, viewership is the fact that it's readily available. Whereas baseball and basketball are putting themselves behind, I don't know if I want to say paywalls, but they, to a degree, it's like putting it behind a paywall. Even when you put something on like ESPN, because people are cutting cords left and right. Like, you are limiting your availability, which is making a few more bucks. And especially with baseball right now, let's make it so you can't watch the game unless you have Peacock and Apple TV and like 17 different streaming services. That's a joke to me. It's just them trying to get every last dime and not even thinking about the health of their game, which has been the story of the people in charge of baseball forever in my entire lifetime. It's only gotten worse under Rob Manfred, but it's just such a short-sighted thing of making their sport something where there's less availability. And again, it's a shame because, like, if I was a kid now instead of a kid in the 80s, I don't know if I'd grow up to be a baseball fan. Not having that availability to watch the games. And you might be like, yeah, the radio. And I mean, honestly, I was also the kid who spent a lot of time playing his video games and listening to KNR on the radio. So I was always a bit of a radio listener. But I don't know. I feel like they're doing themselves a disservice. But I'm going to take some time in these few games, and I'm going to listen to the guy I grew up listening to. Jim Hegan's no longer with us, but that was, touch 'em all time. That's what I grew up with. And, when I tweeted that out, there are a lot of people who jumped in with that memory. Someone else, Arthur Kinney, who always knows his roster stuff, he tweeted out about, like, did I remember watching Arrows games on one of the Akron channel? I don't, but because I'm older, maybe someone can help me out with this. I do remember watching Canton Akron games on like the Canton channel. Now there was what WAKC was like the Akron channel. It was like the other ABC. Like there was the two ABC channels on my local cable. But when I got to like middle school or junior high, all of a sudden there was like a Canton station. Does anyone out there hit me up on my Twitter at JeffMLB Draft or in the comments on YouTube? Does anyone else remember that? Like I remember watching, it was just like reruns in the afternoon. But ESPN Plus, I want to say, was also on there. So like that's how I watched like the Michael Red Scooney Penn team. That was like my favorite college basketball team ever. Like I watched all of those games because again, we didn't have options. You enjoyed every sporting event you got. And I also remember like Canton Akron games would pop up on there. In distinct memory of someone being like, and they're down to their only hope. And like they were making a Star Wars joke and then telling people like, hey kids, go ask your parents about that, because Star Wars wasn't pervasive. It was kind of that lull period. And I'm like, I know this is good. Like it made me more interested because, you didn't get to, Star Wars references were not in the parlance of that time. But does anyone else remember, or can they tell me what the call letters were? I was trying to figure out exactly what that Canton one was. And I swear they had like their own news channel too that was out of Canton. It was not the Akron news channel. I swear it was something entirely different. Is this a Mandela effect? Is it all in my head? But that's, kind of it in terms of recollection and why I was excited for this series beyond just the product. We'll get into the game here in a moment. But yeah, I just, like I said, Hegan and Corrigan that's who I got to hear on the weekends, behind baseball, more of my personal life. It's like my parents are divorced. So on the weekends, I would go. And a lot of times weekend baseball was on UAB, but if I went over to my dad's, he had Sports Channel, so I could watch games there. But like, I don't, I remember listening to like, what, Herb Score was the radio guy, right? Before Hamilton. And like, that's in there. But I don't really remember like the Sports Channel stuff at all. It's just not in my head. I remember watching Fox Sunday or Saturday afternoon baseball. Like, didn't matter who played because again, we had like 13 channels, so I just was happy to do sports. But Corrigan and Hegan, those were the voices for me, of baseball. So, yeah, I'm gonna enjoy these next two games. Hopefully, the Guardians will make them not quite as painful to watch. We'll take a break. We're gonna come back and talk about this game that elicited many a tweet about sliding, that saw Jose Ramirez coming through, that saw Shane Bieber left out too long, some pen issues. A lot of luck to finally get this one in the books, but the Guardians do get this one in the books, and they're now 30-27 and continuing to kind of fight for that wild card positioning. But we're going to take a quick break, come back, and then discuss this game. And our first sponsor of the day is Blue Nile. We've talked about Blue Nile so many times on the show. They do fine jewelry. They do wedding jewelry. If you need those things, you're going to get something that is one of a kind, something that is going to be breathtaking, something that will start conversations. You're not going to be giving a gift that someone looks at and it's like, oh, jewelry, and then they never want to wear. It is an interesting, beautiful looking pieces. They have simple online tools that let you choose your shape, size, and clarity, as well as setting. And they have bench jewelers who handcraft perfect engagement rings. Each one, as I stated, is one of a kind. And if you're looking for fine jewelry, not necessarily engagement jewelry, but fine jewelry, they have 24/7 experts available by phone or chat to help you find the right gift. Make your moments sparkle with jewelry from BlueDial.com, and Locked On Sports listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 more. This podcast exclusive includes engagement. Use code Locked On. That's code Locked On. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. I also want to give a shout out to Locked On's MLB Mock Draft Podcast. Listen, I love mocks. I love drafts. Go check out what they're doing. This network does fantastic work. They know how much people love this stuff, and they put in the time, the effort. It is worth your time to go check that out. Find out who the Cavs are going to take, and hopefully their last lotto pick in a long time, for a long time. Okay, so with this game today, went to extra innings because Charlie Blackmon, who has not been playing well, hit a moonshot in the seventh inning when Bieber was still out there. He had thrown over 100 pitches at that point, and you're just kind of like, why is he still in? He was not as sharp as he had been his previous few starts. The velocity is still not there, But you look at that 7th, line out, single, ground out, home run ties it. He was over 100 pitches at that point in time. I don't really know why you're leaving him in for another time through the lineup, and they paid a price. Eli Morgan comes in, gives up a single, but then he gets the strikeout to get out of it. And then let's just jump to the 9th, because you had shenanigans in the 9th as well. I think the 8th, you had the caught stealing. That's what it was. But the 9th, you come in, ground out, walk, strikeout, ground out. I thought for some reason there was a little bit more. Was there? I felt like Severin got a little bit more of a threat. He had multiple hits in this one, as much as I discount him. But you go into the 10th, you got Blackman starting on second base. Then you have the fielding error by Andres Jimenez. I know I talked about his defense. For Jonathan Daza, who had another player who had a great day. And then you had the fielder's choice to get one out. And then with things not looking great, which was like Charlie Blackman overran the position. Like, here's the thing for this. Like, Blackman overruns it. Then while he's like caught in the rundown, the other runners can't advance. And it was kind of a mess for the Rockies. But thankfully no one advanced, because then they got the double play, got out of this one with the win. The Guardians on the other side of things, Jose Ramirez roped a double to get that run across. And then in the 10th, if you go back to the 6th, clicked the wrong button. So that was another interesting set of, how they got the second run in this one. You have the Jose Ramirez walk, strikeout by Oscar Gonzalez, single by Josh Naylor. Then Owen Miller gets a single. Unfortunately, Jimenez strikes out, ground out, and ends it. And then what I'm trying to remember here was in the 9th. The 9th was what? The 9th is when the Guardians annoyed me. So it wasn't that there was craziness for Colorado, it was the Guardians. So Andres Jimenez has a single, deflects off of Jose Iglesias. Stephen Kwan slides. Like, how many times do I have to say this? Like, they really need to have someone sit down and explain baseball to them and base running. Stephen Kwan, and it's to the point that, it's a joke. Like, it's a full-on joke. Here is Zach at Pino MVP. Kwan was almost out there because of that slide. My goodness. And then you go in even further down, and someone else commented about that slide, and I can't say the words he says. Something hate sliding into first. It is not there's no reason to ever slide into first base. No reason to ever slide into first base. No reason to ever slide into first base. Can they just stop doing it? Why does this keep occurring? Why does this keep occurring? There are smart people in the front office who have to know that this is a bad call. It's higher injury risk, and it's less effective. You're hurting your chances of being safe. So please stop doing it. My goodness. It's unbelievable how many times this has happened in the early goings of the season. And that's the thing. They ended up getting nothing in the 9th anyways, but very easily there, Kwan could have been out. And then let's go ahead and bunt with Hedges so he can pop out. And that's why you don't bunt. Because a bunt isn't even 100% that you're going to advance the runners. You're giving up an out, which is the worst thing to do in baseball. If you want to be productive offensively, giving away an out is the worst thing you can do. That's why you never bunt. That's why bunting is just out of date. It's old-fashioned thinking. It's not good. If you want to be successful, you don't bunt. But, of course, you have a manager who always wants to bunt more than anyone else. So he bunts with Austin Hedges. Hedges pops out. So it's oh, great. This is perfect. We have runners on first and second. Nobody out. So we get our first out with a bunt that fails. Then Miles Straw is called out on strikes. And then Ahmed has a very weak play. You're sitting there facing their closer. You got your 2 runners on to start the 9th, and you somehow don't even manage to advance them at all. It was just a very weak thing to watch there. It was extremely frustrating. Overall performance in this one. Who reached base twice? Well, for Cleveland, Rosario had 2 hits. Jose had 2 hits. You had 3 hits for Naylor, and you had 2 hits by Stephen Kwan. Jose also had a walk. Guardians only had 2 walks in this one. Naylor actually had 2 doubles. Rosario had a double. Jose had a double. Doing the whole box score thing, Cleveland had 12 hits, 1 error, 2 walks. Was it the first run across that was, well, I'll talk about that in a second, but let's see, so they had 2 and 1, 15, and they got 4 runs. That's a low amount, especially when you have that many extra base hits. They had 4 extra base hits, and only getting 4 runs is pretty low. They were not effective. Colorado had a 9 and 1, and then they also had 3 walks. They had 13 opportunities and only got 3 runs. They were even less effective. Of course, they had 3 extra base hits, a double, a triple, and a home run. In this one, I couldn't believe early on when, so I just remember we got the runner to third after Ahmed got the hit and I was like, oh man, Ahmed, don't run to second base. Like, don't do that, because what are the odds they're not going to intentionally walk Jose? Which, again, I don't believe in intentionally walking anyone, but I was just like, yeah, they're going to do it. And they didn't, and Jose made them pay. It was Kwan singled. Rosario had a double. But I was like, just stay at first. Have him at first and third. But he advanced. Jose gets the single across and scores both of them. Oscar Gonzalez then got a single before Naylor popped out. And that was kind of the annoyance. Like, Naylor and Gonzalez just seemed to not put it together at the right moments in this one for Cleveland. But outside of, so Straw, I think, is the only one. Straw and Hedges are the only people who didn't reach base. And this one, Straw is scuffling. Like, he is even, like, where I was like, okay, so I think he'll be a 90 runs. He's not at a 90 right now. He is it's... If this team reaches peak with some of its prospects, Straw is going to be the 9 hitter anyways. That's kind of his future with this team. I think moving him down could be valuable. Could also take some of the pressure off of him. And then, Kwan's playing well again. Or, maybe we don't have Andres Jimenez, our number 2 hitter, hitting 7th. Why is the second best hitter? I know you can sit back and say, but Jeff, Rosario's playing better. Andres didn't have the best game. He's still the second best hitter on this team right now. He should not be hitting 7th. Jose had 2 hits and a walk, and if he had better plate setters, he would have done even more. Again, when you look at just something as simple as OPS, their second and third worst bats in terms of production are hitting 1 and 2. Just in terms of OPS, which is not an end-all be-all stat. It's kind of an outdated stat anymore. But just looking at OPS, because it's what's in the box, their second and third worst regular hitters are hitting 1 and 2. How does that make sense on any level? We're going to take another break here, come back, and talk about our 3 stars in this one, and talk about tomorrow's matchup. Our first sponsor is Athletic Greens. Listen, I've talked about Athletic Greens. When they assigned it to us, it was a product I used daily. And the reason I used it daily is I enjoyed the taste, and it was full of nutrients. I'm 40. I'm very honest about that. I feel my 40 some days more than others, but part of getting old is the aches and pains and sometimes general unwellness, which is sometimes due to lack of nutrients. If you want more nutrients in your diet, if you want to get a product that gives back to the community, provides meals for children, has over 7,000 5-star reviews, recommended by professional athletes, and it's less than $3 a day for this habit. You want to go to athleticgreens.com, and to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free year 1 supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packets with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/MLB Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/MLB Network. Take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. So I got the new college betting lines from Bet Online, and I've got the read for them. I was kind of curious to see. No, this gets sent to everyone. So Texas is now taken over as a pretty strong favorite, followed by Arkansas, then Stanford, Notre Dame, Ole Miss, Auburn, Oklahoma, and Texas A&M. I kind of like Ole Miss. Well, these can't. I mean, I don't always know things, but at 13-2, I kind of like Ole Miss. Like a program that seems to always do well, that has some good depth, that has a lot of hitting and pitching, and I don't know. Like I look at Stanford, and I'm like, Notre Dame. I'm not feeling those as much. Arkansas has a lot of offensive talent. Texas, has probably the college, the college baseball national player of the year, and Ivan Melendez. There's some interesting players. Auburn's got Sonny DeCharia, the most unlikely bodied college dominator you will see. There's a lot of fun players out there to talk about in right now. And go check out our friends at BetOnline, the number one source for all of your betting stats, sports info. Find the latest developments, including news and odds. It's your continued source for all sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. So let's get into the stars in this one. So Jose Ramirez, obviously. 2 hits and a walk, has essentially the game-winning double. Just does it all. And it is always kind of funny to listen to the opposing team's broadcast in some regards. Sometimes I like to do it just to see what kind of the view is. And it's just the whole idea that, they're just in awe of Jose. The fact that, when he got caught stealing, that was, just third time all year after he also had a stolen base in this one. But Jose is there. And Bieber was so close. 6 innings, but it wasn't the most dominating one. He had 7 strikeouts, 9 hits, 1 walk, and 3 earned runs given up, 105 total pitches. It was, I honestly felt like Senzettel, I think is how you say his name. Like, he was the more dominant pitcher as I watched this game. It just felt like he was more able to keep the hitters off balance overall. It's not a great Colorado lineup. There's a lot of players that are struggling in that lineup. There is 2 players, again, not the best stat, but it's the stat that's right there and easy to see. 2 players with the OPS is over 800. That's it. Cleveland has, 1, 2, 3, 4 such guys. They have 2. CJ Cron, who had a triple today, which everyone expects from the big-bodied first baseman. And then Brian Severin, the catcher, who's been playing really well since he got called up. Now, Jonathan Diaz has no power to speak of. That's why his OPS isn't high, but he's still productive offensively. And Blackman had the big hit, but he's having a bit of a down year. He's kind of in that 30s malaise. But yeah, it's not the strongest team. And I kind of expected more from Bieber. It's kind of the internal debate. 3 hits by Josh Naylor. 2 of them being doubles gives him one of the stars. And Eli Morgan was 1 1/3 inning, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts. Brian Shaw picks up the win. They made a big deal about former Rocky Brian Shaw on there. They brought his name up and said that many times. It just made me laugh because he was a disaster from the go for them. But it was his big money free agent contract, but it did not. They ended up cutting him and Jake McGee. That was Colorado went out and got them both. Didn't go well. And then Clase, for the jam he was in the 10th there, he had a 1 clean inning. He didn't actually give up a hit. It was an error on Jimenez. It was the ghost runner that was out. Well, do we consider it a ghost runner? However you want to label it. It's those were the base runners before everything went awry. He actually, I know people are probably going, man, that was a roller coaster save. There's been so many roller coaster saves this year, but this wasn't on Class A. I'm tempted to go with Morgan just because he got out of the jam, but I think at the end of the day, I've talked about kind of something similar. I think if we still go with Bieber, 6 2/3, 3 earned runs. It wasn't his most dominating performance. It was not as good as he has been, but at the end of the day, you'll take 6 2/3 with 3 runs given up. So those are our 3 stars in this one. Tomorrow's matchup is a pair of lefties. It's Pilkington versus Gomber. Gomber, that trade for Nolan Arenado. Like, Gomber might have been the best player in that trade. That's how bad they wanted to just trade him off. Gomber has been worth 0.6 WAR this year. He's at 1.3 for last year. His FIP is he's a fifth starter. He's a solid lefty fifth starter. That's what they got for Nolan Arenado. So for as much as people like to bag on some of the moves, like, Pilkington was the return for Cesar Hernandez, and he's not dissimilar when you're talking about these players and performances. Now, yes, there was more pieces going over to Colorado, but I don't know how well Pilkington's going to pitch there. Does not feel like a great matchup for me. This is probably the game I think they have the greatest likelihood to lose. Just looking at the way things match up, the environment, throwing the pitchers out there, I think it probably runs in Colorado's favor for tomorrow. I'm going to pause it so I can pull up the wild card numbers. Cleveland is still half a game behind Boston, but behind Cleveland, the next team for the wild card, Chicago White Sox, because Texas and Los Angeles keep struggling. Seattle is playing a little bit better of late. They're moving up that chart, but yeah, it's Cleveland's a half a game behind Boston, and they're, I think, 3 behind the Twins. They're just hanging around, continuing to hang around in this thing. It's going to be interesting to watch. The Yankees are kind of running away with it. 45-16 if you're not paying attention. It's kind of their world right now. And one of those reasons is like Nelson Cortez, right? He is their top pitcher. He's going to make the All-Star game. I think that is safe to say. He's going to be a Cy Young candidate. And isn't it funny that Matt Blake went there and Nelson Cortez kind of became, Nestor Cortez became Nestor Cortez this year as a 27-year-old. You're seeing the Matt Blake effect. You're seeing why people come and raid the Guardians. Nestor Cortez was with Baltimore in 2018, New York in 2019, Seattle in 2020, New York last year worth 1.7 WAR, and then 1.7 WAR already this year. He had a good FIP. I mean, he had good indicators a year ago working both as a starter and reliever. So it's not like it's just out of nowhere. He was solid a year ago. But again, Matt Blake effect. There's a lot of good things that the teams are going to keep coming back in rating the pitching staff in Cleveland, because even the jump Clay Holmes has made, who's now their closer, when he was kind of a minor deal with Pittsburgh, right? Like, this bullpen has had so many injuries. Britton, Chapman, Green, Loizinga, even Steven Riddings are all out. So now your Clay Holmes is their closer. It's fascinating to look at. Again, you just talk about their own pitching development and how did they get there, rating the Guardians. No one is happy about the Yankees playing well. Unless you're a Yankees fan, who's going to be happy about that? They're always the evil empire. But enough about them. Just discussing Cleveland. They've got this Rocky series. I'm going to do a crossover for Friday with Paul Holden, former Ohio U student, so some Ohio ties there. We're going to discuss kind of a post-mortem on this series. And then we'll get into, the rest of this week. I will be focused on the Rockies. We'll talk a little bit about the Dodgers. And my one other note I wanted to make, I know I'm going long because I've gone long on every episode of late, but the YouTube tells me they want me to go long. I want to thank everyone who is downloading on YouTube. I want to remind you to rate and review, download daily. We're getting, a trickle of subscribers, but it'd be really great to see some of those numbers jumping again overall over there. So something that stood out recently, and I clicked on the wrong team, is, I don't know if everyone saw, Toronto just lost Yoon Kim to, I believe, Tommy John surgery. So he's going to be gone for a while. Yes, they went out and signed Gausman. They have Jose Barrios. Alec Manaea has been great. Ross Stripling and Yusuke Kikuju are their next two guys up, and Stripling's been awesome this year. It's honestly his best FIP of his career. I don't know how long he'll keep that up, but he has been 7 starts, 18 relief. He's better as a swing arm for them. UC Why do I keep wanting Kikuchi? Not as strong. He's been close to replacement. I say this because one wonders, looking at this Toronto team, looking at their top end prospects who are not close in terms of pitching, I can't help but wonder. Julian Merriweather just can't stay healthy. Feel bad for him as well. When would this be the matchup for a trade? If the Guardians decide to call up one of the young arms, everyone's always wants to trade Savale and Plesac in my mentions. This might be the team for the Plesac trade. Now, I don't know. Can you get one of their lesser catchers? Do you want to get a lesser catcher? I mean, Bo Naylor is destroying the ball right now. It seems silly to go out and target like Alejandro Kirk and have to trade a bit more to get him with what Bo Naylor is doing. So if not that, like Jordan Grosjean's star has fallen a little, but that doesn't help. I mean, Ricky Tideman is the guy whose star is rising, so you're not going to target him, though he'd be ideal. But could a trade be made? Just an idea to think about, something I wanted to throw out that when everyone's always asking me about pitcher trades, Blue Jays are interesting right now. They don't have a ton of depth. They have some great high-end players, but they're all in right now. So could there be a trade to be made? Again, this is a minor leagues that's a little capped, a little topped off with their promotions and trades and everything else. There's Moreno, there's Martinez, there's Tideman, there's Groshans. Who am I forgetting? CJ Van Eyck was a high pick a few years ago. A lot of people really liked from Florida State. But yeah, and they'll add more in the draft, and I always love what they do in the draft, so they'll be fine. But I think they're in kind of a unique situation where if they end up deciding that they need another arm, they know the Cleveland Arms. There's still the connections there. There's still the backstory. There's still the back line with that. So just something to keep in the back of your mind. I've been Jeff Ellis. This has been Locked On Guardians podcast for this week. Remember to rate and review, download daily. It helps. Subscribe on the YouTube. I appreciate everyone who does, and I respond to all comments on there as long as you are not a bot. Remember to follow me at JeffMLBDraft and just randomly pepper me with mailbag questions. When I get enough, I'll do a mailbag. I often respond to things as it's happening on there, but we'll like I said, the responses to the YouTube, the responses to my Twitter, that helps decide how this show goes, as well as just the general hits and things like that. But again, thank you all for listening. I appreciate each and every one of you. As I end every show now, go Guardians, go.